We are MakilalaTV, the first Filipino-American TV talk show in the New York metro area. Get to know us as we talk to the community leaders, innovators, advocates, and emerging artists who affect Filipino-American life.
Din ako. Luckily, yes, eventually we get to grow old. People say 60 is the new 40. They are lying. 40 is a lot younger than 60. Do you know why AARP sends you a membership invitation when you're approaching 50? About the same time when you need reading glasses, or worse, a magnifying glass? Well, you may still feel like you're 12 at heart. However, the signs of aging are slowly make a grand entrance. So how do we prepare for this new chapter? In this two-part episode of Suddenly Senior, The Art of Aging, we are joined by three distinguished Filipino Americans. Ambassador Mario Lopez de Leon Jr. was the Philippine Consul General in New York. He's currently enjoying retirement after spending 38 years in government service. He also worked in the fields of management, consultancy, market research, and corporate planning in the private sector. Presently, Ambassador De Leon does part-time consultancy services for international and small businesses and helps pro bono aspiring Filipino-American politicians. He's married to Eleanor De Leon and adores his 4 daughters and 5 grandchildren. Attorney Caroline Tanjutco is an author, journalist, wealth advisor, and financial planner. Carol is a recognized leader in the Filipino-American community, a frequent resource speaker on investing, financial planning, elder abuse, prevention, and financial risk topics. She received the highest recognition for her work on continuing education seminars, legal and financial advocacy. Dr. Alicia Almendral is a board-certified physician specializing in family, geriatrics, and aesthetic medicine. She's an inspirational figure for all Filipinos, a pioneering force in the fight against COVID, an angel to those seeking happiness through beauty, a business owner, a beauty queen herself, a loving mother of 4, and a dedicated community leader. Together with my co-host Cristina Pastor and Rachelle Ocampo, I am Jen Fior, and welcome back to MakilalaTV. It's glad to be back here in the studio, and such an amazing topic we have for today. And so my first question, what does aging mean to you? So Ambassador De Leon, we'll start with you.
Wow, maybe it's because I'm the oldest. Well, anyway, aging, it's more of a state of mind. It comes to you when you least expect it. I realized that I'm already aging when I retired, because the people started treating you more differently. Yeah, that's one. When it comes to, of course, even senior discounts. When you take, for instance, when you commute, you take the MTA, then you have a special card. You seem to have that privilege, and at the same time, physically, you can feel it that you're slower. I mean, you want to do the same routines, but at the same time, you have to do it moderately, so that at least you can cope with it. So that's when I realized really that I'm already aging. It's not when I had my first granddaughters. No, not that. I was younger at the time.
Well, what about you, Attorney Carol? What does aging mean to you?
First of all, it's such a joy to be here with you, ladies. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you too.
Like fine wine, it only gets better. You're wiser, you're wealthier, you're more relaxed. Well, there are a few things like my eyesight, for instance. It's not as good. I always pride myself of having a 20/20 vision. But now I use reading glasses, so I'm still fine with my aging. I'm good with it.
That's a positive spin. Okay, how about you, Doctor?
So speaking in scientific meaning of aging, so it's a process of growing old. So this is a result of a cumulative effect of changes on the molecules and the cells, and it can deplete the physiologic reserve of a person. So a physiologic reserve is, it provides the ability to compensate on changes from all these diseases in our cells. So with aging, there's also increase in free radicals. So
What
these
is
free
that?
radicals, they affect the cells. So it affects the ability to respond to the stress. You know, so especially when you are bombarded with diseases, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally, or socially. So it does put a stress on your immune system.
I like that we have a scientific factor about aging. Well, how about Rachelle, who's not really into the aging part yet?
No, I've definitely not thought of aging, but for me, I'm observing it from my parents and my grandparents, and just realizing that, you know, they're aging and that they're not slower, but they are not able to do as much things as they can before. But it just goes to show you that when you were saying like 40 is the new 60, 60 is the new 40, and then Ambassador was talking about like retirement. I mean, we're all gonna get there. It's just we're all gonna process it differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how about you, Cristina?
In my case, I look at aging as more a state of physical being, because while I have some aches and pains all over, hair getting white, skin getting drier, my mind is still very active. I still have a lot of ideas coming out. So I was telling myself, I think my brain and my body are not on the same page because they do not connect well. But that's how it is for me. I may be slower. I like to sleep longer, and but there's still a lot of ideas coming out.
That's great.
And on that note, I would like to ask our panel, you've heard this expression, too old. You're too old for something. Have you been told that you are too old for something, and that you're too old to do something, and how did you react to that? Doc Alice, let's start with you.
Well, I do hear that from my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, my kids' age range from 13 to 20, so their activities are much different from mine. So, so that, and also I would say language, you know. I think, you know, I could not understand certain languages that they speak. So I think it's not just physical aging, it's also mental, or you know, the changes in the signs of times, you know. So for me, that makes me feel old. Yeah.
What about Carol?
Oh, thanks, Grian. Well, fortunately, in my case, I haven't really encountered a lot of that. And maybe it's because I always started myself. Like, for example, in my choice of clothes, shoes, and even my activities. Like when I travel, I always ask them, am I too old for that? So maybe that's the reason I really don't get a lot of the questions that, oh, you're too old for this. No. But
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind,
Mario.
really. I wouldn't mind even.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It's,
Ambassador Mario?
Yeah, for me, it's more the way my family treats me. Because, I mean, some very, you know, mundane things like, you know, when you go out, I used to spend for everything. Now they are spending for it, right? So that's number one. Number two, when, you know, we go to the supermarket, you carry all of those things that you bought, you know. Oh, Dad, I'll be the one to carry that, not you, you know. So I mean, there are things that you just get from your family, and at the same time, when you start, I mean, you want to eat something that is unhealthy to them, then they'll tell you, oh, be a little cautious, you better take care of your heart. Those are things that always remind you, that you're already being treated differently. But as far as the rest of the community, when I deal with them, well, it's still the same. But it's more on the family, that's one thing I would say.
Cristina, it's so funny that you asked that question because my mom literally told me that this past week, that I'm too old to go out and still parade and do community stuff. It's like, why are you doing so much? You're gonna have 2 kids. And I was like, oh, this is my time. I have the energy. While I have the energy, I wanna go and do as much as I can. So that's so funny that you said that because it's not just like for older people.
I used to get that from my daughter. You're too old for this music, Mom.
Oh
You're
my
too
gosh.
old for this kind of activity, Mom, things like that. But you just laugh it off.
Yeah, I actually have a question of like, am I too young to do this, kind of procedure, like doing health-wise with aging? Am I too young to get Botox? Am I too young to, to do colonoscopy? Or is it too young to invest? I think that's more of my question. Am I too young? As opposed to, they're too old, it's like my kids. I think am I too old to wear this kind of outfit? But more on the medical part, am I too young to take, take care of my skin? Am I too young to do all this medical procedures? So, segueing to that. So what do you think? I talk about like skincare.
So skincare. So in terms of too young, there's really no age limit. I have patients who are teenagers because they have acne problems. So as young as 13, I have a patient who does facial, but because we do medical facials, so to treat acne skin. In terms of Botox, I think my youngest is 19. So it's really starting to prevent,
Starting at 19
inflammation.
to get Botox?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of younger people actually in their 20s are coming in for Botox for prevention. Yes.
What about, is it too young to put money in the bank?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Because that's something that I frequently bring up, even to my own kids. As soon as you start earning, in fact, when you start your first job, if you're 18 or even when you're 16, that's the time you have to start thinking about saving and later on investing. Because think about it.
Yeah, because Botox will probably cost you money, right?
Yeah. And
skincare products.
you know how kids today, they like to do gigs, right? So
What's gigs?
gigs, not really work on a 9 to 5
I think I'm
kind
too
of
old
job.
because I didn't know what gigs.
It's more of like freelance work
Side
type
hustle.
of
They call it the side
hustles. Yes.
Yeah. So you see, we have to speak their language so we could communicate to them, right? So I'm telling them, if you want to do your gigs and not work at age 50, how old are you now? 20? You have only 30 years to make that happen. And think about it, maybe you need at least $1 million to be on your own at 50. So start doing it right now.
Yeah.
That's always my response.
It's so interesting because out of all my cousins, I think I'm the only one that actually invests. And I think it's because my aunt, even from college, she just said, Roth. Whatever you do, just do the Roth. I was like, what is a Roth? I don't understand what's a Roth. It's like, just look it up. Put your money in. As long as you get your first paycheck, make sure that something goes into your Roth. I was like, okay. So I looked it up and I signed up for it. I made sure that my employer contributes and everything. So I think you really just need a good influence at that early age because it's so overwhelming, even now.
Because then, as you get older, healthcare, it goes higher. And you have to figure out Medicare, and you have to figure out your retirement. Social Security isn't going to cover an entire lifestyle, right? Unless I'm wrong.
But we don't think of that.
No.
Yeah, when you're young, I didn't know about all this Medicare and all this stuff until I had to go through with my mother. Because then you have to get them the Social Security, and you realize you don't have enough, so you need to figure out. You have to start saving as soon as you can, like 401k. You have to, contribute as much as your employer is contributing.
You maximize it,
You
if
maximize.
possible, minimum 15% of what you make. And you reminded me of my daughter, by the way. As soon as she got to the United States, at age of 18, she got her first job working for one of our Filipino lawyers as like paralegal. The first thing she did is look up what's a Roth IRA, and she started her Roth at 18.
Yeah,
But it's so overwhelming because you say 15%. 15% is a lot.
I know.
So for me, I started at like 5%, and then every year I would add 1%.
Yeah, there was I wouldn't call it tradition, but with all my kids, I started them with a savings account right away, and then I told them, if you put $10 out of your allowance, I'll add $10 to it.
Oh,
so kind
matching.
of like matching it. So they
Okay.
kind of got used to saving. I mean, what happens after when they get older, you can't control.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very important.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Years ago, I did this session with the Association of Filipino Teachers here in America, and that's exactly what we taught them. When do you tell your children to start saving money? Well, as soon as the children say, I want, then you start telling them about, okay, let's start up something like what you did, and let's do household chores, and you get paid for it.
Right.
How about that?
right.
$1 for each chore.
I'm thinking
Right.
of
Yes, like-
thinking of Alex saying he wants everything at 2 years old. I'm gonna start now.
Yeah, you can create
Yeah.
a simple chores, a list of chores that your kid can do at that particular age. $1 for a chore, let's say $20 at the end of the week, and pay it off, and you match it.
Yeah, you
And
match
that's
it.
a good idea.
I
I didn't
match
think
it
of
at a
that.
certain point. Sometimes they save so much money. If I match it, I'm like, I'm losing a grocery money or something. So, but I want to go back to Ambassador. Since you're the only one retired among all of us, how is retirement? Can you
What do you
tell
mean,
us?
finances?
Could be finance, could be
No,
health-wise.
I'm coping well with my retirement. In the first place, the pension I get is sufficient for my needs. I mean, I'm talking about my personal needs. But I live with my wife, and my wife is still working, so I'm not even on Medicare. I get my health insurance from her health insurance. Now I'm the dependent. Is number one. Now, I mean, we were talking about how to educate our children. I think it's very important that the parents should be a model when it comes to that. You should teach them, that you've been enjoying so much, you've been traveling so much. Why don't you put a little portion of whatever you earn, to 401k? If you have an existing 401k, or you go into something like insurance investment, I think Carol can talk more about that. So what I'm saying is, you have to educate also your children. As for me, I'm satisfied with my situation now, and I expect it to improve, when my wife retires, because I'll have additional pension.
I mean, I'm going to ask Dr. Alice, you deal with geriatrics, so you see a lot of what I don't want to call it elderly.
More well-seasoned experience.
Well-seasoned experience. I'm like 2 years away from that one.
Or for older Americans.
Yeah,
I think
so
they call them older Americans.
Well, more matured
right.
population.
what's the concern? Like 3 things that they're concerned about.
Well, I think it's also my concern right now. It's memory, the memory, gradual loss of memory. So that's the
What was your
primary
concern
concern.
again? Sorry, I forgot. Go ahead.
So that's the I think the number one problem of elderly population. So
So what do you advise them? How to?
well, there are modifiable risk factors to contribute dementia or memory loss. So you have to look at your health. So those who are prone to develop dementia are those with diabetes, hypertension, obesity, smokers, and physical inability. or physical inactivity. So if you manage to correct those, then that will, minimize the advancement of dementia. So other issues that I usually see is oral issues, oral health issues.
Interesting.
Okay, so we're talking about the health, right?
Right.
So oral health issues, so infection of the gums can lead to infection of the teeth and causing loss of teeth.
Yeah.
So that's a very important issue that we address. Other than that, I would say psychological, being alone, So when a point that a person becomes alone because their kids are, they have their own families, so that's one thing that we have to recognize.
Together with that one, right? So what do you prepare in like, how do you tell elderly people, how do you prepare for that? Like, do you have to have a will? Do you have to have a living will or a medical, what do you call that, medical, okay?
The advance directive.
Advice directive.
Yes,
So
yes.
can you talk about that one?
Yeah, so in my world, you've got to do a more or less a holistic planning. It's not just one aspect. We're always interested about how you do physically, because with that we can now relate and we could make a better analysis of how we're going to invest your money. Are you in for the longer term? Are you in for the next 35 years? Listen, when you're 65, we talk about 30 more years. What are you going to do, right? But a lot of things can happen even when you deal with people who travel a lot, ambassadors, for instance. So the issue of having a will, well, that sounds like it's the most basic thing you can do, but it's just one of the 5 basic estate planning documents. You need to have a will. But what's a will? Well, it's basically making a decision on how to dispose your property when the time comes. But there are other things, such things as living will, healthcare proxy, DNR. The DNR is do not resuscitate. Those 3 things, the living will, the healthcare proxy, and the do not resuscitate, they all come in one packet, and it's called the advance directives. It doesn't really go any further than you thinking of a people, of somebody who can make decision for you when you can no longer make a decision. But it's more than that. You need a living trust. If you have other estates, the living trust is something that you put some property in the name of another entity, which is the trust, so that you can go on, and it's what I call managing 6 feet under the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, in
So
my
morbid.
practice, we actually, part of the physical exam or wellness exam is discussion of advanced care directives.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I feel like that is something that I only started thinking about when I gave birth to Alex. Someone asked me, like, oh, are you planning to do a will? I was like, yeah, he just got born. Why am I thinking about this? But
you have to
now, because if
Especially,
something were to happen.
knock on wood, you have to have a guardian.
Yes,
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
See what happens when you're getting old, all this ideas. You go from very happy to like morbid thoughts of, what if? But I think it's very important to talk about those things. And
Well, at the end of the
I'd
day,
like to
you'll
ask
feel
the
really
panel.
good about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Cristina.
I just like to ask the panel, what are the things that you do in your spare time that stimulates your brain, that helps your brain keep moving? Like, is there a hobby that you do? Maybe you're doing painting or you're learning a new language?
Yeah, let's do a quick
Or, I don't know,
quick
something
responses. I would say meditate. It's very hard. 10-minute meditation. I think taking your phone away, but it's very hard. I'm just telling you. You have to have discipline to do it. So, what about you, Rachelle?
Right now, currently, I sing to baby.
To baby.
Yeah,
Okay.
I focus on the baby.
And attorney?
Oh, I do oil painting. I spend a lot of time oil painting, drawing,
Yeah, I know
sketching.
you do that. That's one of your
nice.
hobbies. Very nice one.
Yeah.
What about you,
And Doc
Ambassador?
Alice?
Dr. Alice?
Oh, me, well, I just focus on what I do right now, which is the private practice. So I just like to think of ways and what other services I can add to my practice. So just constantly keeping myself busy.
What about you, Ambassador?
And Ambassador?
Yeah, for me, I do a lot of reading. I still read at least four books a month.
Wow.
Yeah, really, 4 books a month. And at the same time, if ever I go streaming video, I usually opt for the documentaries. I mean, I always make it an opportunity for me to learn more, right? So, that's the way I try to stimulate my brain. And at the same time, of course, if you're in Zoom meetings with your former classmates and all that, it might be a lot of bantering, but the point is there's a lot of wisdom also exchanged in the process. So it's good. A lot of mental exchanges.
Thank you.
What about you, Cristina? What do you do?
Me, I am, I'm here, so I'm learning the language. I am forced to learn the language. And I do a lot of coloring books.
Oh, that's a good idea.
With life.
Those are
I do coloring books.
You should show some of your art, Cristina.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah, you
love to
should
see
share
it.
some of your art.
Coloring by numbers.
Yeah.
Way to
that unfortunately concludes the first part of our episode on the art of aging. I think we covered health, we covered finance, and I just want to say thank you so much. Maraming salamat to our guest, Ambassador, Attorney, Dr. Alice. Thank you so much for being here. To the cast and crew, maraming salamat. Of course, Rachelle, Cristina. This is an amazing time to be together and to talk about these issues. To our viewers, thank you for inviting us to your homes. Until next time, sa ulitin, here at Makilala TV.